Hello, thank you for joining us today. In June 22nd, 2020, the EPA and Corps of Engineers implemented a new regulatory approach for defining the extent of waters of the U.S., or those aquatic resources that are under the jurisdiction of the Federal Clean Water Act. This new rule, named the Navigable Waters Protection Rule, significantly reduced the jurisdictional extent of waters of the U.S., especially in states like Arizona that have significant ephemeral features which are no longer jurisdictional waters of the U.S. In response to this rule, some states have begun promulgating and implementing new programs to extend regulatory protection to aquatic resources that are no longer waters of the U.S. Arizona is one of these such states, and I have two of SWCA's wetland scientists and project managers from our Arizona offices here to provide us with some additional information on Arizona's new surface water protection program. Russell Waldron and Victoria Castile are going to walk us through some of the nuance of this rule so that you know what may need to happen to keep your projects in compliance and on schedule. Russell, what can you tell us about this new permit program?
Thank you, Noah. The Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, ADQ, has recently promulgated a rule under House Bill 2691 to provide protections to waters of Arizona. This surface water protection program creates a list of waters of the state of Arizona that will receive protections from harmful discharge of any pollutants. The list and corresponding map of the protectable surface waters are available on the ADQ website. It's important to note that this program does not create any new regulations or new protections, but extends existing Clean Water Section 402 regulations, protections, permit coverage, and reporting requirements to select non-WOTUS or non-federally protected surface water features, now known as waters of the Arizona or waters of the states. These waters of the states were previously protected as waters of the U.S. under the Clean Water Section 402 NIPDES program, now known as the Arizona Pollution Discharge Elimination System, or AZIPDES program. With the implementation of the Navigable Water Protection Rule that Noah talked about, these waters of Arizona now fall into a gap left by the new federal definition of protected surface waters and the absence of an Arizona state-specific surface water protection program. So what the new program does not do is it does not create a Section 404 type of program for regulating the discharge of dredge or fill material to the gap waters or waters of Arizona feature. And with that, I would like Vicki get into some of the details of the gap features that this new program is designed to protect.
Thank you, Russell. As was previously noted, the Navigable Waters Protection Rule has redefined waters of the U.S., and it now excludes ephemeral washes and as well as intermittent and perennial streams that do not contribute to a traditional navigable water or territorial sea in a typical year. In Arizona, that leads to the exclusion of a great number of surface waters that were previously protected under the Clean Water Act but are no longer protected. So ADQ has identified intermittent and perennial surface waters that are non-WOTUS, but that are intermittent or perennial that they would like to protect under the same Section 402 regulations and permits. So these waters of Arizona, or waters of the state, include intermittent and perennial surface waters that are non-WOTUS, so there's no overlap there, as well as ephemeral stretches of 8 major river systems that ADQ calls out by name. And the state regulations that would apply to those is the AZIPDES permits, such as de minimis, construction general, multi-sector general, and so on. So ADQ has provided the public with a draft surface water list. It is still open for comments and questions. So please reach out to ADQ if you have any questions or comments on that. And we have provided the links here if you want to look at those yourself. I am going to do a quick overview of the ADQ Emaps. So this is Adq Emaps interactive map. If you go on the left-hand side, there's a water quality tab here that you can open, and it has many different categories of waters. So if you want to look at what would be protected under the State Waters Program, you can click on the lakes. This SWPP is abbreviated for the State Waters Protection Program. And there's also a streams SWPP. That includes all perennial and intermittent streams and lakes that would be protected under the State Waters Protection Program. There may be others as well. This isn't an exclusive list at this stage, but this is a really good start to see if your project may be overlapping or near one of these waters, and to know whether or not your project may be subject to the state ZIPD's permitting requirements. So these gap features include, as I mentioned, the intermittent perennial. And so ADQ calls them out as wet waters to emphasize that ephemeral waters are not included in this. Even though ephemeral waters are not included, they can't be totally ignored because they can serve as conduits into protected waters. And ADQ does not provide any kind of minimum distance to a protected state waters that may require protection or which may require coverage under an ZIPD's permit. It's really up to the project proponent to determine the risk for discharging to a protected water, and if the risk is high enough, the permitting coverage is recommended. So with that, I'll send it back to Russell, who will go over how it might these new regulations might affect your project.
Thank you, Vicki. So to kind of sum things up, ADQ will continue to administer the Federal Clean Water Act Section 402 program in Arizona for all WOTUS. In addition, it will add the waters of the state of Arizona to that program, and those are those gap waters that got left out once the NWPR became effective in June of 2020. So as an example of what Vicki was talking about the ephemeral wash being a conduit to the waters of Arizona, here we have a slide with a project site in the square, and an ephemeral wash was maybe anywhere from a half mile to a mile, whatever the distance is, to the waters of Arizona. In the upper right, we have the Gila River. Gila River in this particular segment and photo is an ephemeral stream. It would not be protected under the NWPR rule, but it is protected under the new Surface Water Protection Program as one of the 8 major rivers of Arizona. So the challenge is to determine whether any discharges from your site could get down this ephemeral wash and into the water of Arizona. And so if you have any questions or need additional information, please get a hold of Vicki or myself, and we'll be happy to answer your questions and help you through the new process.